Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to the Black USA morning show, BlackUSA.News morning show. Here with the one and only Marsha Jews,
Good
my
morning.
partner in crime. Good morning, Queen.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm fine, King. How you?
Blessed by the best. Marsha, kudos to Cavette. She had a wonderful show last night. Really proud. It was phenomenal. So look, we have a Monday through Thursday evening lineup as we speak.
Okay. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so Black USA News is 5 mornings, Monday through Friday, 10 to 11, and Monday through Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. So tonight
Okay.
we have Party Marty, Let's Talk. So all of the fans of Maurice Tates can show up.
Wonderful. Well, you're keeping busy over there.
Happy birthday to my daughter.
Oh,
She
happy
turned 20
birthday.
today. Yende Amari.
Wonderful. Well, tell her I said happy birthday.
How
How old is she now?
20.
20. Oh, I remember that age. It's a long time ago. How are you, Donnie Glover?
I'm blessed. Good.
Yeah. Where's Sparrow?
Got my coffee. Pharaoh is watching the front.
Okay. Tell him I said hi.
I will.
So what you got?
We don't want to get him started this
Well, we
morning.
don't want to get him started because we know he will get started.
Yes.
So what's up today on the show?
Well, we are going to be talking with one of the most noted attorneys in the country, if not the world. I mean, we've been blessed on a regular basis to have Mr. Robert DeShiel on this show. Today we will be featuring Billy Murphy.
Oh, that's wonderful. The Murphy family. He's been doing wonderful things over there. Really proud of him.
Has an extensive history, an extensive resume, an extensive biography. You know, his brother took me to the Middle East, took me to Jordan back in 2002.
No, I didn't know that. I knew you went to Jordan, but I didn't know that.
His brother Arthur was the convener. He was known for taking Black journalists to Jordan throughout his career.
Mm-hmm.
And let me
I
tell you,
loved Arthur.
did you?
Oh my gosh. Ooh, Arthur Murphy was hilarious. That was one of my buddies. We would be sitting in the same room and just fall out laughing. People wouldn't know because he'd be on the other side of the room, I'd be on the other side of the room. We look at each other and just fall out because usually what they were saying was something stupid or something that we just thought was whatever.
Yes.
But he was brilliant man. And involved. He was really involved. He had opinions and he used his voice a lot. Arthur Murphy. Wow. Yeah.
Where did you meet him?
At the Afro. When I first moved to Baltimore, my first job was at the Afro-American newspaper when it was on, what is that street? On Center and what? I didn't hear you.
When it was on Druid Hill?
No, it wasn't on Druid Hill. It was that was Center Street. I guess it was. Druid Hill turns into that. And then whatever that main street is that Lexington Market is on.
Utah Street.
Utah. So it was right on the corner. And my office was on the first floor in the back. Ken Wilson was the director when I got there for advertising at that time. But he was also managing the Inner Harbor Marina. So, but that was
the guy with the boats.
Mm-hmm. And then Tommy Goins became my director.
We got to say this is Black History Month. I mean, he was like the only leader of the Black people with boats in Baltimore that had a space down at the harbor, the marina.
Yes,
right?
But he also managed the entire marina. So he had that contract to do that. and he was part of the President's Roundtable, which was another historic organization. And at that time, it was Osborne Payne, Harlow Fullwood. Osborne Payne had and Sina Reed had several McDonald's here, and then you had Ray Haysbert. Man, Ray Haysbert was amazing, and then he took over Park Sausage. Brilliant, brilliant brother, brilliant. He's involved in a lot of things.
Marsha, you've lived in many places. Let me ask you, do you now, taking New York off the table, can you tell me another city that has as much Black business history, Black professional history as Baltimore?
I'd say Detroit, between Detroit and
Chicago.
Atlanta. Chicago certainly, but I think Atlanta they were really involved. Black people had a lot of businesses at that time when I was down there living.
I know
So
there was a famous man named Herndon, Alonzo Herndon, and he was like it would be before the era of Willie Adams. You know, here in Baltimore, before there was Willie Adams, there was Tom Smith. But anyway, Alonzo Herndon ran Atlanta Life.
Okay.
He was one of the first wealthy Black people
That down there.
history. Yeah, that's talked about in Black history.
See, at that time, I think one of the first things that we should talk about are all the Black male mayors that were during that era that were phenomenal, from Tom Brady out in California to Harold Washington in DC. You had Coleman Young up in Detroit. You had what was it? I'm coming from the west over east. Then you had I can't think of his name in Ohio, and then we go down to Maynard Jackson, and of course we come out here to Marion Barry. But there were a couple more in New Jersey. There was a Black mayor, but they were all in the same era. And at that time, I was living in DC when I got to meet all these people. And what was going on in Black cities at that time was unbelievable. They were rocking and rolling. Black businesses were thriving. People were doing amazing work. They were getting contracts. They understood the messaging. They understood their responsibility. They had been left out for so long. We've been left out for so long. And it was just an opportunity. And there was no game. They were just saying, yeah, we're going to all come to the table. This is not how you're doing it. You're not going to remove us. You're not going to dismiss us. We're going to be about the growth and the development. And there were a lot of major corporations that came out of that.
So my question to you, Marsha, is if that level of Black pride, Black unity,
Black focus
is with us today.
I'm sorry, what? What was the question?
When you think of the 60s and the 70s through 1980, there was a certain level of cohesion, cooperation, economic cooperation, that Black Wall Street mentality,
right,
working together. What happened to it since 80? I mean, this is what, 40 years later.
Well, I think a lot of it is that, a lot of white people had a problem with all these Black people being in leadership for real. That's straight up. And so when you see that they're in the position to make millions, Black people are in the position to make millions and millions of dollars, they weren't trying to see that happen. And, Billy Murphy, how you doing, brother?
No.
We're talking about talking about all those Black mayors that were happening at that time, and how they were changing economic development for Black businesses. And you understood all that mix during that era.
Well, the problem was that we had a couple of mayors who didn't believe in that approach to being a Black mayor. I remember early in the Kurt Smoke days, I arranged for him to sit down with Maynard Jackson and Marion Barry, and he refused. He didn't want to be associated with them. And it wasn't until Mary Pat Clark ran against him in his third term that he even mentioned the word black or talked about race issues at all. And the only reason he did it then was because Mary Pat Clark had a substantial black base of support that she cultivated for years. And he saw her as a threat. And so that's when he came out with the colors. And before then, it wasn't anything to do with black power. It wasn't anything to do with black people. It was just, let's pretend that we're all going to be nice to each other and not talk about race.
So what what were black businesses doing during that era?
They weren't getting any play whatsoever. I remember Robert Clay, who was a prominent black business person, who was the head of the Minority Contractors Association, complaining for first two terms, after he had given a great deal of support to electing Mary Schmoke, that he wasn't getting any contracts at all. And if there was ever a person who was qualified to do minority contracting, it was Robert Clay. Nobody ever suggested for a minute he was anything but qualified in the highest sense of the term. And so we've had this problem. Look, we had it under Sheila Dixon. She only had spent 4% of the money that she could have spent on black contractors. So only spent 4% of it on blacks. And so, you know, your mic is off, by the way.
Feedback, Billy.
Pardon?
There's some feedback.
Can you hear me now? Is there any feedback now?
Yeah, I can't tell where.
Wait a minute. I think I know the problem. Is that better? Is there any feedback now? Still? Should I just dial back in? Maybe that'll do it.
You're muted. You're muted.
Donnie, you're muted.
Yeah, try coming out and coming back in. It was working fine at first.
What about now?
Nope, it's still we're getting it's like a buzzy sound.
All right.
Yeah, it's gone.
This is going to be an extraordinary interview. Marsha, this is our 11th week, I believe.
That's a long time.
I think it's 12.
12?
12 weeks.
Wow.
That's roughly 3 months.
That's pretty good.
And we haven't killed each other.
No, I didn't go through the window or through the screen.
And we know that you know, this is a sign of life. You are okay. You're right there.
Because you know I can't come through the screen.
We presume you're in Baltimore. Here we go.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Much better.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
So we were talking about, I made a quip about, but she's now working for a black contractor, but she couldn't give black contracts. That's interesting.
Well, you know, there was a scandal recently about in the Medical Marijuana Commission about sham ownership, and one very prominent black business person got caught fronting for white folks in an arrangement where she got loaned $1 million in a note that could be recalled for any reason at any time. She would be forced to pay it at any reason for any time. And she was fronting for two people who were from the Budweiser family. And the commission disqualified her application insofar as it awarded minority points after it was discovered that she had no power under the operating documents. No power at all. So she was pure, it was a pure front job at the expense of black people who were going to run it legitimately by having black people with control and ownership.
What happens to a mind that creates that type of mentality? That, I mean, wouldn't you just
It's selfish. It's selfish.
Selfish?
Yeah.
I don't think it's selfish.
Well, it's a sellout. It's an Uncle Tom approach, because if you are fronting for some white folks who actually have the power, all the power, to run the business, you're cutting a black business person out of that opportunity who would have had the power. And so it's selfish. It's just pure Uncle Tomery for money. You know?
Uncle Tomery. I haven't heard that term. I like that. Uncle Tomery. May I use it, please? I'll give you.
Well, the young people call it coon.
Oh, yeah. I like that too, but I like Uncle Tomery because that's really clear.
Mr. Murphy, your first successful case, according to research, was defending the First Amendment with the Black Panther Party newspaper.
Yeah, that was my first case. There had just been a shooting by 3 alleged Black Panthers of 2 officers who were filling in some reports sitting in their automobile. And the reaction in the white community was outrage and alarm. And so our Deputy Attorney General, a guy named Francis Borgiden, the courthouse up at in the northwest part of the city is named after him, decided to file for an injunction to stop the distribution of the Black Panther newspaper. And a judge who didn't care anything about the First Amendment, who was otherwise a pretty good guy, Jim Parrott, granted the injunction. And the Panthers, of course, were outraged that this was the worst kind of First Amendment violation.
Right.
You know, it's called a prior restraint. It means that no matter what's in the paper, you're going to ban it. So that's what the Communist Party does. That's what dictators do, but we have forbidden it in our society. And so they hired me because I had been active with them in their efforts to organize the community up to that time. And indeed, they had helped me to get the University of Maryland Law School to come up with the first affirmative action plan in the history of the graduate schools of the University of Maryland, because the Black Panthers, they thought I asked them to do it then, you know. The Black Panthers came in and took over the courtroom. And remember, this was in an era, this was I think 1967 or 68. This was in an era where that was routine. Students were taking over school buildings, locking the administration out until change came. And so when they saw that this was about to happen in Maryland, they wisely negotiated with us, and we came up with the first affirmative action plan that admitted 50% women, because there were only 4 women in my class, 5 women in my class of 129, and 20% blacks, which was the percentage of blacks in the population. Now, white folks get mad at affirmative action, even though it's a terrific compromise. It really doesn't give us all that we deserve.
At all.
Because it just starts after discrimination, without redressing the past discrimination.
We can't hear you. Mr. Murphy, the sound
Can you hear me now?
heard it back.
Can you hear me now? Oh, my Lord, I don't know what's wrong with my electronics, and I know what's wrong with my electronics.
Well, it was working fine at first.
Is it working now?
No, it's still breaking up.
I'll just dial back in.
Okay.
I wonder, is this a separate microphone that you're using?
It's the microphone in my video camera. It works on Zoom calls. Let me see if there's anything interfering.
So he's using StreamYard. I wonder if there's anything different.
Yeah, it's a different.
See, I love Billy Murphy. He's an electrical engineer and he's an attorney. I know that he probably has some other skill sets that he hasn't told us about. All that brilliance over there.
You say that to all the guys. Come on, man.
Well, just the ones that I believe are brilliant.
Thank you. I'm blushing.
We were talking about Arthur a few minutes ago while we were waiting for you to come in. My buddy.
Yeah, we all miss him. Yeah, we all miss political genius. He managed about 18 out of 20.
You're going to come out and come back in?
Yeah, okay, I'm still, you still getting okay.
Oh, and he has so much good intel to share.
Marsha, let's have a prayer.
Okay, I'm listening. Go ahead.
All wise and almighty God, we thank you for this show. We thank you for the extended broadcast. And we pray that we can have a successful interview. Bless Mr. Murphy. Bless Marsha. In your name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
You have the floor, Mr. Murphy.
So, you know, the Panthers were my first client, and they asked me to get the injunction dissolved, and I brought in Larry Gibson because I figured two of us would be better than one. And he came in as pro hoc VC counsel representing the Monumental Bar Association. And so we got two cross examinations, and we got two arguments instead of one. And the first people that I had to cross examine were Donald Pomelo, who was the head of the Baltimore City Police Department at the time. And he hated my guts. And the head of the FBI for Maryland, a guy named Steve Tully. And he was a good guy, but he not on that day.
Right.
And so that was the first time my name was ever mentioned in the paper, because the cross examinations, I tried my best to just kick their butts. And, you know, depending on who's watching, you know.
Right.
It worked. We got the injunction dissolved.
Mm-hmm.
And so I continued representing the Black Panther Party from that point on. And you remember when Fred Hampton got killed, because the FBI had an assassination squad for these guys. And they were looking to put them in situations where they could shoot them without recourse. And so they burst into Fred Hampton's apartment in Chicago and just shot him while he was in bed. You know, it was brutal. And this kind of stuff was going on all over the country because it was part of what was called COINTELPRO. And COINTELPRO was a government program started by the Hoovers of the world to assassinate, discredit, and otherwise render useless about 40 nationally known Black leaders. Today, we may have 4 nationally known Black leaders.
Wow.
5 maybe, you know, in terms of people who have arisen from the community. Back then, you had countless people with great pedigree who had done a lot to advance the civil rights cause. We don't have that today.
Why?
That's changing. Well, you know, when you erase a generation of leaders, you can't replenish that in a generation. It takes several generations to replenish that terrific loss of leadership. And we're only now beginning to replenish it.
And that's some real deep thinking, that we really need to grow our leaders, right? There are things that they need to be able to take with them, or is this an innate piece that's within them for them to believe that justice should be served, that they're willing to sacrifice their lives for it to be served, for equity to be there? What does it take to build that type of leadership, and what should we be doing in our communities in the development of those types of leaders?
Well, you've got 2 questions in one, and that is, where are they now? Why are Black people beleaguered, if that's true? And then what do we have to do to rebuild our leadership in the community so that they will survive these predictable attacks on everything? First of all, we are still in the position where if we do what is right for Black people, we're going to piss off a whole lot of white people.
Right.
And if you're not prepared to do it anyway and suffer the consequences, you're never going to do it. Because there's always going to be a racist element in, for example, Baltimore. There's going to be racist element in the state of Maryland. The more crazy about Black leaders to begin with, and the more effective they are in making things right and just, the more pissed off this group of white folks gets. And if you're afraid of that group of white folks, then you're not going to be the leader that we elect. You're not going to be able to make change. And if you're unafraid of that white coat, you better be squeaky clean in your background, because you will be scrutinized more than the average white lady. They're going to become your proctologists. They're going to look everywhere they can find for something to discredit you or cause you to go to jail. And so one of the prerequisites for being a black leader has always been, if not smart in the ways of survive, that you be completely honest in all your dealings. And unfortunately, people are not planners when they're young. And they have to rely on being taught. They have to rely on being taught. They got to be squeaky clean. And usually the only people who are squeaky clean are people who never been in business for themselves. Because unless you come from a business-oriented family and you've been properly trained, you're going to make some stupid mistakes. You're going to end up owing some taxes, the whole kind of stuff. And of course, all of that will be jammed. I was going to say a certain part. But I was going to say that.
Right.
And see into that.
So
We see into that.
we're going to have to try this at another time because the sound is bad. Okay. So what I heard him say is that leaders today, back then, a black leader understood that they had to be fearless.
Well, it was understood because
There
you had to deal with back then and now. When you start talking about being open mouth, opinionated, you're gonna have some flack coming back.
So let's get him while we can. You talked about being fearless, Mr. Murphy.
That's what you have to be. Look, if we're not at least as fearless as Frederick Douglass was, who are we?
Right.
I mean, Frederick Douglass spoke at the risk of his life.
Every time.
And that
Every
didn't
day.
stop him. And so what are we scared about? Scared the white man gonna get mad, and he gonna get you if you don't watch out. And that's what, unfortunately, a lot of black parents believe they have to teach their kids in order for their kids to survive.
Mm.
It's the same as what we have to teach our kids when we teach them how to drive. We got to teach them how to remain alive when they're confronted inevitably by white police officers who at night especially have their hands on their gun or have their gun out when they approach a car with a black person in it.
Yep.
One false move and you're dead. One false move, you're shot. So discrimination is real. Discrimination from the police is real. Did you see what just happened in Prince George's County yesterday?
No.
There was this expert report that was heavily redacted. There's a lawsuit going on where the police officers, black and Hispanic, are suing because the disciplinary process was discriminatory in Prince George's County Police, and brutality was overlooked by white supervisors and by some blacks and Hispanics when it was their turn to become supervisors, so that the same old stuff could keep on going on in terms of brutal policing. And it was just unredacted. The report was redacted, but when it was redacted, it was so powerful in demonstrating racism that the police chief of Prince George's County Police resigned.
Oh, I know.
I did not know that.
Sawinski. And I do a lot of work in Prince George's County. So now when it was unredacted, you see all of this real brutality and discrimination revealed. And the sad part was the county objected to it being unsafe.
But I thought that was a majority black county.
So we got a black county executive, and she objected to it being revealed.
Was that because that's going to make it look bad on her watch, or?
Well, my speculation is that this is an expensive lawsuit, and if it ever goes to a jury, the risk that the jury will find it against the county is serious, and the damages are very large. And so the county just settled one case. We had a $20 million police brutality settlement down there in the fall. And that was the biggest death case settlement for police brutality in history of the state of Maryland, and tied for #1 in the country. And so, you know, they had to pay that out of the treasury because they didn't do the smart thing and get insurance to cover police misconduct. It's available. For example, in New Jersey, every county is covered up to $15 million. Every local and city police department covered up to $15 million. And so there's money available to pay for misconduct. But when we don't get insurance, we don't get what's called risk management from the insurance companies. And risk management is where they look at a deviant police officer, a prejudiced police officer, a brutal police officer, the same as we do.
Right.
They look at him as an insurance risk. And so they push to get rid of all the bad cops because they're liabilities to the insurance company. It causes them to have to pay out money. So one of the first things when you get insurance is you get a company that's coming in and is going to help you root out the bad cops and help you figure out how to do it. Instead of sweeping it all under the rug, letting everybody lie about what's going on, hoping that it'll be believed, and rolling the dice in front of a jury. And then when they do roll the dice in front of a jury and you get a damage award, if they sue under state law, they get peanuts. And so you have to do the suit in federal court where there's no cap on liability. So if you sue a police department, you're limited to $400,000. Even if you're crippled for the rest of your life. And so you have to figure out how legally to get around that cap on liability.
Right.
And so if you can show in federal court that there's a pattern and practice of the same kind of behavior that you're suing for, that you're suing for.
Is that? Do we have that in Baltimore City?
Oh yeah, statewide. It's the local government limitation on liability.
Okay.
It's messed up.
I'm gonna do it again.
Okay.
That's very interesting about the laws in terms of people killing. Like, first of all, why do we even have to get to a place where, unless somebody is in the middle of some madness, how do police just kill you? They just kill you. And how does that happen? How do we get to a place where the police they just kill you? They come with the gun out and they just kill you. They don't think about it. There's no second thought. There's no take a breath and pause and really sit down. They just kill you. What kind of training are they supposed to be getting that they're not getting to make certain that the people are left whole? They're human beings. They're not.
Let me answer that question. One of the things you have to do is recognize that across the world, according to the experts who've studied this, between 8 and 10% of the population is too sociopathic to be on the police force. But when you look at the people who applied to be police officers, the number jumps to 40% sociopaths. Now let's look at Baltimore. We had a psychologist who's supposed to be weeding those sociopaths out so they wouldn't end up on the force. But it turns out that we kicked the covers off of them after 40 years of doing it wrong and found that the tests that he were using were not applicable and were not effective in doing this. They weren't designed to be that. It was just a sham. And so he was removed after, and I'll tell you what happened. Young white woman psychologist got called by this 40-year psychologist to cover for him while he was going to be out after surgery. And he emailed her and told her that these screening examinations would take only about 15 minutes. There were 2 tests, and she'd make $50 per test. It was easy peasy. Well, she was a new psychologist, and she'd been trained in undergraduate and graduate school about what was the right way. And so she immediately saw that he could not have been doing it correctly. And she reached out to us. And we looked at what he was doing, and we brought it to the city's attention, and they had no choice but to fire him. Now, how many of those 40% applicants became Baltimore City police
Right.
officers? Completely sociopathic
Right.
or partially sociopathic. And, you know, sociopaths do the kinds of stuff you see that was widespread in Baltimore.
That's
Now, I'm
unconscionable.
convinced that we are doing it right even now.
Right. Look at the outcome. The outcome tells it all. The outcome tells it all. I mean, all you have to do is look at their behaviors and you can track it. Sit down and talk to any of their partners, you can track it.
But it's terrible because even the advocates of police reform don't understand this. They're dealing with the after effects and what to do about the after effects. But if we properly screen police applicants to eliminate the sociopathic elements of society from becoming police officers, that 40% who crowd the applicant pool because they love power and they want to do something to do, you know the attitude. If we don't screen them out, we're going to keep having the problems we're having now because training will not prevent them from misbehaving.
That's right. Because that is in their DNA.
Right. You're going to be training a bunch of sociopaths. I wish I was exaggerating, but I'm not. I mean, just imagine how many bad cops we got.
Across this nation.
Who are racist, sexist, racist against gays and transvestites. I mean, you see it all. And that's because we never did it right. We didn't care enough about our black population to hire police officers who were not racist, who were not sociopaths.
So is it possible now to take that data and say, effective immediately, you have a whole new mayor leadership? Can we go look at that now and say, we're going to test all of our police?
Well, here's the problem. The experts that I've consulted with say that it is harder to get rid of them than to keep them from getting on the force. Keeping them from getting on the force is easy. But once they're on the force, they're protected by unions, they're protected by police procedures that discriminate and that are biased in favor of keeping officers who are popular, even if they're sociopathic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so you have to, in order to get rid of them, you have to have elaborate behavioral mechanisms so that they're closely monitored, so that all of us are closely monitored for their bad behavior. And that's exactly what was not happening in Prince George's County. That's what that lawsuit revealed. That's what nobody was monitoring these police officers in a way that made that early intervention for their early misconduct could be done. And they weren't these bad officers were not being brought to the attention. They were cheating in the way that they were following.
So, Marcia, have we ever had this type of interruption before?
No, it's something that's happening to his, whatever the connection is.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go. Here we go. Sound like a song.
So, that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Okay, well, I think that needs to be revisited across the nation. And it's frightening that if we're sitting here knowing that we have all of these people who have issues, it's never even clearly because of their behavior, you can tell that there's something off with a person, but that we're not even using the systems and the infrastructure that's available to change that or to check that or monitor.
Well, here's where we have problems with liberal whites. They always come up with some compromise. Well, you can't do it all at once, and you won't be able to hire police officers if you screen out all the bad ones, and all this kind of stuff. And so we'll never bite the bullet if we start out with a compromise.
Right.
And what Black people need, what women need, what Latinos need, what gays and lesbians and all the other alphabetical stuff needs is a police department that will not discriminate against them.
Period.
That's temperamentally unwilling to do it by nature. They're good human beings. And, you know, look, racists need not apply.
Right.
Brutal people need not apply.
Mr. Murphy, while we have some clarity, I got to ask you, why are they messing with our state's attorney?
You know why they messing with her, because she was the first one to do the right thing by prosecuting police officers for brutality and letting everybody in the state know that there was a new sheriff in town who wasn't going to put up with it. She wasn't having it.
And not afraid.
Not afraid.
We don't care because this is what we're going to do.
Right. And the police union, which is racist, I said, and they can sue me if they want to.
Yeah,
and
they are.
They are racist to the core.
Yep.
And so they control the police policy of resistance to any reforms.
Mm-hmm.
They resist everything decent and reasonable to eliminate discrimination. They are controlled by retired white police officers from the
Who are
Baltimore
racist.
City. Well, I'm not saying they're all racist.
Well, I'm saying they're racist.
responsible. But some of them are dyed in the wool, old-fashioned racist.
Right.
And so they hate Marilyn Mosby. They did what they could to sabotage her investigations in the Freddie Gray case. That's documented. I mean, I have all the documents that will show that right off the bat. So if I ever write about it, which I probably should,
I think you
see
will.
the evidence for yourself.
Right.
And so a police officer that's at war within itself over what the right thing to do is a dysfunctional police department. Now, I hope this commissioner gets all of that. You know, some commissioners do and some commissioners don't.
He's been there a minute. What do you think of him?
Well, it's hard to say. I don't have a relationship with him, which is unfortunate. I should. And it's not his fault. And from what I get from inside sources, he's really trying to do the right thing. But he's still got a lot of bad officers that need to be removed from the force. And, you know, we've got to reform that department from top to bottom, because middle management is one of the most serious problems. You know, they mistreat the black officers. They mistreat the public. Not all of middle management. You know, I don't want any stupid people out there to say I'm talking about every white person. I mean, my God, how many times do I have to put a disclaimer out there that I'm not talking about every white person? I'm talking about the white people who are racist. And let's put something else in this.
And if you don't fit in that category, shut it down.
Yeah, you should be enthusiastic about what I'm saying. Let's put another thing to that here. There's a difference between bigotry and racism. If a black person calls you a honky or uses some other derogatory term, it's being a bigot, not racist. Racism is bigotry plus power to institutionalize it. That's racism.
And the power to
Racism is what
institutionalize
groups decide to do to other people. It's what group policy is towards other people. It is the collective response of white people towards black people. Now, we haven't gotten to the point where we can even think about doing that. And so there's a lower quality, lower version of racism, a smaller version of racism. That means that if you use a group of people to implement your bigotry. If you're a member of an organization which is bigoted, that's racism with a small r. It's not racism. It's racism with a big R. Where the consensus of the country is in favor of slavery. Where the consensus of the country is in favor of a Donald Trump who is pro-Nazi. Good people on both sides. Pro-cowboys. Pro every racist organization.
I'm not hearing you. You're giving good stuff and getting pieces.
Come out and come back in one more time. I'm gonna buy a network so this don't happen again.
Okay, I think that's a great idea, Donnie. Make it happen. Make it happen.
Mr. Murphy, we need our own television network so this doesn't happen again.
Well, it's easier to do it now than ever. The infrastructure is available on the internet, and it's time to set up a studio where you have all of the equipment that you need. Do a GoFundMe page, and a lot of us will donate some money so that you can have exactly what you need to have a broadcast quality studio, and it costs so much less than it ever did. You can do it for $20,000. You can have an extraordinary facility in one room.
Marcia, are you with me?
I'm with you. I'm
Okay.
down.
So,
So
Mr. Murphy, if we had just a couple of minutes, what would you say to the world in this 2021 Black History Month?
mhm.
This is a rare occasion in American history where you have forces that are uniting against racism in a way we haven't seen in 40 or 50 years, maybe 60 years. This is a window of opportunity for us to get a lot done. And it's time for us to get out in the streets. It's time for us to worry our elected officials to the point where they're tired of hearing from us until they do the right thing. It is time for our elected officials to be bold and seize the moment so that change can be made that is lasting. It doesn't get any better than it is now because, look, the forces of reaction are building. This guy Trump isn't going away. The Republican Party quakes in fear of this man when he says, he's no longer somebody I support. I support the challenger. That's what they're afraid of. They're not afraid of being unprincipled. They're afraid of being unelected.
Period.
And as long as that Republican Party has that mentality, and as long as we do the work, say, of a Stacey Abrams,
Right.
then we are going to keep beating them. The one fly in the ointment is reapportionment. We live in a country where it is now legal to gerrymander, thanks to the Trump judges' votes last year. They say gerrymandering is no longer in their jurisdiction. They don't have any power to stop it. Well, almost every state legislature, about 30 some of them, are gerrymandered in favor of the Republican Party, even though the majority of the population is Democratic. And so they have a stranglehold on state legislation. Fortunately, we don't have that problem in Maryland. And there's nothing we can do about it except get federal statutes passed by the Biden administration so that gerrymandering is outlawed. Now, there's going to be a mixture of views in the Democratic Party because they gerrymander. We've been gerrymandering too. We say it's gerrymandering in self-defense. Well, if you're going to have a nationwide prohibition against gerrymandering, it's going to stop both sides. So that's the best thing, because then we'll have representative state legislatures for the first time in 15, 20 years, because they've been gerrymandering that long. So that's one of the big reforms we need to see out of the Biden administration, but it's going to have some resistance in Democratic quarters too.
Good deal.
What do we need to be doing in terms of how we get our state and national officials focused on what our real needs are across the state and the country?
Unrelentingly contact them without outrage. Monitor their votes. Monitor their votes. We got some folks down in the legislature who are of our color but not of our kind. And they are afraid of white folks. I won't name their names now. But at some point, I'm going to be tired of it, and I'm going to name them the way I see them. And they always compromise. They're always afraid of what white folks going to think of. No, worry about what we going to think of.
Right.
Worry about what's best for us for a change. Stop bending down. Stop bowing down. Stop being scared. Because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
That's right. That's right.
And see, we ought to follow the Stacey Abrams model. It's hard work, it's elbow grease. Nothing magic about it. Getting out there, being relentless. Getting everybody, lottie-dottie, everybody to vote. What they did in Georgia, what they did was just remarkable.
Yep.
They reconstituted the elect with young and old and middle-aged black people. And black women were the reason why. I mean, black women, you know, they're not scared of white folks the way black men are. There's a
Right.
historical reason for that. You know,
No question.
chauvinist society, if you neuter the men, you solve the problem. But black women have risen to the occasion, and they're stronger than many of the men in our community. And so, since they don't care whether you get mad at they cuss you out, they will talk about you like a dog. They will organize against you without well, when black men get to that point, I understand why men get to that point. I understand why explained, Malcolm X explained. I mean, with the last and brutalized and discriminated against on your job for having the opinions that you ought to have.
I can't.
About
You need to do this again because information is so serious that he's given us. I'm telling you. It's very serious.
look, we understand why some black men are afraid. Because if you've gone through generation after generation after generation where you intimidate black people on the job, you intimidate black people when they're public officials, you intimidate black people with your police forces, you intimidate them with the discrimination of all kinds, then, you know, when you outnumber us like that, fear is real. Fear is palpable. You know, you can make an argument that you're supposed to be afraid, but the time for that has passed. And I think young people get it. I think more and more people in the community get it. You know, we got to stop being afraid of this white man.
Right.
You know, and do our jobs as though the future of the black community, the future of our children depend on it, because it does. So we have to have elected officials that not only are fearless, but who are smart and understand what we need. You know, look, there's a battle going on now over whether the mayor ought to sign a project labor agreement. A project labor agreement is where the white-dominated unions, who have never had their fair share of blacks in the workforce, come in and say, look, you're pro-union or you're anti-union. Now, if you're pro-union, you're going to sign this agreement. Well, the rational response is, no, we're not signing it. We're not signing it because you all have a history of discrimination.
Right.
You're going to bring in a workforce from out of town. You're going to bring in out of town contractors who are going to bring their high-level people in to do the job who are not black. You're going to say only union workers need apply when union workers have been shut out of the apprenticeship programs and discriminated against for years.
Right.
And you're going to keep non-union black companies from growing as every other mayor of any other ethnic group has gotten their contractors to grow. So when the Italians took over Baltimore City, the Italian contractors came into their own. They got the big city contracts. When the Jews had a mayor, the Jews came into their own, got big contracts. When the Irish came in, they weren't shameless. They got all the Irish involved in economically developing their own communities.
Yeah.
But we scared, boss. Boss, we scared. We scared to do that,
For a whole
boss.
bunch of those mayors that look like us.
Yeah. Now, that's what Maynard Jackson did. That's what Shirley Franklin did. That's what Andy Young did in Atlanta. And we brag about Atlanta, but we too scared to be Atlanta. That's what Marion Barry did. We brag about Marion Barry, but we got mayor after mayor after mayor don't want to adopt his policies.
Right.
And I tell you about the white liberal. The white liberal is so paternalistic They won't even read the books about Marion Barry. They rather remember him as somebody who had a drug problem.
Yep.
But Marion Barry ran Washington, D.C. in a way that was transformational to
No
the black
question.
community.
And I was living there at that time.
But ask your garden variety white liberal who's got all these ideas about what we do. Have you read his book? No. Don't talk to me about your liberal ideas if you haven't read what the successful black mayors did.
Right. And it was unbelievable. And it was in every major, we started this conversation about it. Every major urban market had a black male.
Mr. Murphy, one more time. One more time. Marshall, when he comes back, we got 5 minutes. Let him get his final.
Okay.
Card. He said 20 grand. We're gonna do I need a studio. We need a studio. You got the floor, big brother.
So, we need kids who are dedicated to understanding the problems of the black community, who are not overly influenced by white folks about what the problems are and how to solve them, who are not eager to follow the lead of liberals who have started out with compromise positions rather than fighting for the positions that ultimately represent our views. They've been helpful. We couldn't be where we are, wherever that is, without the liberals. But we got to go beyond liberalism to black power. And so if you are asking a question about whether you should vote for an elected official who's black, ask him about his views about whether we have enough power as black people. Ask them whether or not they believe in black power. And by the way, when I speak to white audiences, and I do on a regular basis, I ask the questions of the audience. How many of you believe that black people have enough power? I don't get a unanimous view that, on that subject. And then I ask them, this audience participation before I give my speech. How many of you believe in black power? Ask all white audience that. Oh, you're shocked when you see how many hands don't go up. So we have a real problem. And if they don't even believe in black power, you got to do what Frederick Douglass said you got to do. You got to take it. Let's say power, you don't get power without a struggle, and it doesn't work that way, and it never will work that way. People don't give up power easily. You got to be well organized to seize power. You got to have a better agenda to seize power. You got to be more articulate to the communities of color to seize power. You got to earn the right to seize power because you worked in the community diligently. You're not some new face that comes from some faraway place who may or may not understand what it's like to be poor or broke, because it's different. Poor is kind of a permanent condition. Broke is temporary. If you don't understand these things, if you haven't lived in the black community, who are you leading? You're leading people you don't even know.
We thank you for your time, Mr. Murphy. This has been an incredible hour. And the next time, we'll be interviewing you from the Jews Glover Murphy studio in Baltimore. Happy Black History Day every day, and we love you.
Thank you. The feeling is mutual. And I just want to thank black people for having supported me over the years. You put the food on my table, you put a roof over my head, you put the clothes on my back, you put my kids through fine schools. I can't ask for more. And I love being in Baltimore because, I love my people, and I think, unless I mess up real bad, my people love me, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to walk down the street and be appreciated for what you've done in the community. And so I have a love affair with this town. This is my hometown. I'm not going anywhere else. Unless, of course, we have a bad snowstorm and the power grid goes down, and I'm going to Cancun like Ted.
I've been cruising.
Yeah, like say please. I'm just teasing. But thank you so much, black folks, for having my back.
And thank you, Billy Murphy. Thank
Thank you
you.
for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
God bless you, babe.
Keep up the good work, Donnie. Keep up the good work, Marcia.
Yes, sir. Wow.
Good deal.
You know, I think this is really beautiful. Thank you.
This has been a powerful show. Marcia Jews,
Yeah.
what did you learn?
You know, I think I was reminded that we as a people need to really be we as a people, and that Frederick Douglass and a whole lot of other people died for us to be able to have free thinking and opinions and to be able to articulate a thought. And I just wish that we would work better together and to see our community as a whole, and that all of our efforts should be that of empowering, educating our young people and our elders to be better parents, better teachers, better doctors, the best we all can be. The
I
best
heard him
that
say
all
that
we can
fear
be.
is paralyzing. That's what I heard. Fear is paralyzing.
It's deep.
And if you got black elected officials who
It's
have
deep.
fear in their DNA, get rid of them. Stop voting for them.
Yeah, that's deep.
Let
How do
me
you
take
know
a
when they
moment,
have
Marcia.
fear, though? How do you know
Let me-
when they have fear?
Oh, you know you got fear. Let me take a moment and say that, Marcia, the opinions expressed on this show are not necessarily so of those of the management. I will also say that we have interviewed some people and put some stories out that raised eyebrows, that raised questions, because we had questions. Some of those questions have not been answered, and we will keep asking questions, even if it makes people uncomfortable. And we don't care who you are. Our job is to provide the truth, to dig for the truth, to ask the tough questions. That's what my daddy said. He said, son, you got to be able to ask the tough questions.
Do you ask a
So,
question?
well, one thing I heard Mr. Murphy talk about was that marijuana that was coming down, and I'm going to have to find out who that black person was who was fronting for a white business.
I'd never heard that story before.
I've heard rumblings,
I've never heard it.
and as a good lawyer, he did not, put
Right.
so much out there. But with marijuana coming down the pipeline, and some people got really antsy and anxious about the cannabis thing going on in the state, and some deals were cut. I mean, Delegate Cheryl Glenn ended up with some time on her hands. Lance Lucas ended up with some time on his hands through that whole marijuana thing. It's not enough. Let me give you a quick story for Black History.
Okay.
This is very apropos. Have you ever you've heard of Nat Turner?
Yes.
And he was in Southampton, Virginia. There was also a man in Virginia who attempted a slave insurrection named Gabriel Prosser.
Never heard of him.
Gabriel Prosser, he was in Virginia, didn't go well. Denmark, VC, South Carolina, didn't go well. But Denmark, VC, I want you to know, I think the year was 1799. Is that right? Yeah. He hit the number.
What? They had numbers back then?
Nothing new. He hit the number and he bought his freedom. And the white people told him he should move back to Africa. Do you know what Denmark VC replied? I want not just for me to be free, I want all of my people. And he was living in Charleston. He wanted all of his people to be free. We need those kinds of leaders today. And he ended up dying, but we need those kinds of leaders today, because it's nice to have your home in suburbia with the picket fence. It's nice to have your luxury automobile, all of the accoutrements of success. But if you don't have the intestinal fortitude,
Lord have mercy,
to stand up for your people, You should go and hide your head in the sand with your black card, because that's what it is. We've been trained, and we're training our children essentially to be prostitutes.
That's extreme.
Sellouts.
That's extreme. Sellout. What's a sellout? What does that mean?
Someone who, instead of using the medical marijuana legislation to help empower black people, they say, no, I'm going to empower myself.
Oh. First person singular.
Me, myself, and I.
Aha. Well, there you go.
I'm going to find out who that person is.
Please do, and let me know, because I know that you're going to uncover the truth.
You can bet all the tea in China on it.
That sounds like one of them late night calls you got to answer.
So this is Black History Month. It's what, the 23rd, 5 days left. This was established by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Started off as Black History Week. He chose February because it was the birth month of Frederick Douglass, having nothing to do with the length of the number of days in the month. Frederick Douglass, and it was one other black person who was born in February. That's why they chose February. We thank God for Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and also all of the many black historians over the years. J.A. Rogers, and I've mentioned some of them in my book. Dr. Ivan Van Sertima.
What's the name of your book?
I can't tell you the name just yet, but I can tell you it is on Black Wall Street, and I can tell you that I'm going to put some information. There's some information coming in it that all of us should know.
Okay.
We should know this information, but it was not taught to us. And this is information readily available right there in front of our face.
Okay. Well, I know you're a big researcher.
Went straight over our heads.
You're a big researcher.
Mr. Murphy is a heck of a researcher. I mean, think about it. This guy had an MIT degree.
Electrical engineering.
And then said, I'm bored with this. I don't like this. I don't want to do this. He told me that he experienced racism.
Oh, I'm sure.
In the engineering industry. And he's like, I'm not doing this for 30 years and retiring. So he went back and went to law school. And I first approached him when I was at Coppin in the mid-90s. And it was one of my first interviews. We had this big old camera we took down there to his office, and he's been as kind. And so this is a word of advice to any young people out there. If you see someone out there doing things that you want to do, call them.
Right.
Email them.
Yeah.
Call them, though. Don't let doubt, fear
prevent
you. Call them. Call them right now. You got these smartphones. You got Google. Billy Murphy, phone number, Google. 539-6500. That's the main number to the book. But anybody, anybody, maybe Barack Obama might be a bit challenging if you admire that type of thing. But I'm reminded, and we are happy that we had a black president, but we need legislation for black people.
No question.
None of that, all of that other him and Han.
But what is the entity that
he's the president for all people? Remember that? He's the president for all. He can't do this. They did legislation for everybody but us. I don't want to hear that crap.
Okay. The reality is that we as a people need to look within ourselves, and we should be doing whatever we can do from wherever we are to empower ourselves and to bring in the people that we know have our best interests at heart and vote them in. And do research so that you know who they are. Figure it out. But we can't keep sitting back and being dismissive
I'll tell you something else.
Discouraged.
Black people need to have a phone book full of lawyers. This show has been made possible by the support of businesses, including Murphy's Law Firm, J. Wendell Gordon, Ivan Bates, Robert DeShields, My point is very simple. Black people, do not wait until you need a lawyer to get to know a lawyer. I'll say it again. Don't wait until you need a lawyer to get a lawyer.
Okay. That sounds good. And I'm glad that they're supporting this show.
You can afford a lawyer. You cannot afford to not have a lawyer.
One.
And there are lawyers that I know that will work out a plan for you if you should need legal representation. I got a phone call about 3 Saturdays ago. And a young man had a DUI. He needed an attorney. And we got an attorney on the phone for him right away.
Yep. It's always good to have one when you need one.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay. That'll be the final word. Up to date, down tomorrow, do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it but to do it. I got to do it regardless of how I feel. Don't be a sellout, y'all. If God put you in a position to be strong and to be the leader, then be a leader. And if not, then pack up and go home.
Okay.
My name's Donnie Glover.
I'm
for
Marcia News.
And this has been another edition of BlackUSA.News. We'll be on tonight, 7 p.m. with Party Marty. Let's talk. And by the way, Wednesday, tomorrow is Sister Biz. And then on Thursday, we have the Black Lawyers Roundtable.
And that's at night, right?
7 p.m. Keisha Brown, Esquire, will be the host.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh. And Friday is the virtual Black Wall Street Awards. How to better support Black business right here on BlackUSA.News. I am somebody. I am my brother's keeper.
All right. Take care. Good morning, Baltimore.